Chosen one, you have completely rewritten the playbook of your own existence. You just pulled off the greatest psychological reversal in history. They're shook because you transformed from the hunted into the master of the game without firing a single shot. While your enemies were busy analyzing the projection you allowed them to see, you were rebuilding your soul in the shadows with surgical precision. People think you changed. People think you snapped. People think you had some moment of revelation that transformed you overnight. No, what you did was far more terrifying than transformation. You removed the mask. That's it. That simple. That devastating. You stopped performing the version of yourself that made everyone comfortable. You stopped shrinking to fit into boxes designed to contain you. You stopped translating your complexity into digestible sound bites for people who were never going to understand you anyway. You stopped apologizing for being too much, too intense, too aware, too awake. And the moment you stopped performing, the moment you allowed your actual frequency to emanate without filter, without apology, without concern for anyone's comfort, that's when the entire structure collapsed. Because confidence was built on your submission, status was built on your silence, reality was built on you playing small. And when you stopped, when you simply existed at full volume, everything revealed itself as the house of cards it always was. People are experiencing what's called cognitive dissonance, but at a level most humans never encounter. Brains are trying to reconcile two incompatible realities. Reality one is you were the person who got categorized, labeled, filed away in mental archives as solved, understood, managed. Reality two is you're now operating at a level that makes previous assessments look like amateur hour. The mind is literally short-circuiting, trying to bridge those two versions. And the only way people can cope is to create stories. You got lucky, you faked it, you had help, anything except the truth, which is that nobody was actually seeing you in the first place. What people saw was their projection of you, their need for you to be a certain way, their requirement that you stay beneath their level of threat tolerance. And now that the real you has emerged, now that the actual force has revealed itself, processing isn't possible, so panic sets in. Gossip flows, analysis happens, theories form, all while you sit in perfect stillness, knowing that confusion is your confirmation. You want to know the real genius of what you just did. You didn't attack anyone. You didn't expose anyone. You didn't even defend yourself against years of mischaracterization, silent judgments, whispered doubts. You simply became undeniable. That's the move nobody can counter. Years were spent trying to diminish you with words, with looks, with strategic exclusion, with subtle undermining. Power was thought to be about making noise, about being seen, about forcing recognition, but you understood something others never will. Real power is about becoming so undeniable that reality itself has to bend around you. You don't need to announce your value when your presence rewrites the room. You don't need to defend your worth when your results speak in languages nobody can translate. You don't need to prove anything when your existence alone makes people reconsider everything once thought to be known. This is the reversal that's causing sleepless nights. You flipped it. You made approval worthless by no longer seeking it. You made validation obsolete by finding something far more powerful, self-generated certainty. People think you just woke up radiating this frequency. Nobody has any idea about the nights you spent rewiring your entire neural architecture. Nobody knows about the months you spent in silence. Not because you were hiding, but because you were rebuilding from the foundation up. Nobody was there when you had to destroy every version of yourself that was built for approval, when you had to burn down every identity that was constructed for comfort. Nobody saw you sitting with the pain, the betrayal, the isolation, choosing not to become bitter but to become better, not to seek revenge but to seek evolution. Nobody knows about the work you did in the dark, the brutal honesty sessions with yourself, the moments you had to admit that you were complicit in your own diminishment by caring what people thought. This power everyone is witnessing now isn't new. It's not sudden. It's the result of excavation work nobody can imagine. You dug through layers of conditioning, through generations of programming, through every lie you were told about who you had to be, and what you found underneath all that debris wasn't weakness. It was a force so pure, so concentrated, so undiluted by outside influence, that when you finally let it emerge, it changed the atmospheric pressure in every space you occupy. People aren't afraid of what you did. People are afraid of what it means about them. Your reversal, your rise, your undeniable emergence serves as a mirror, and that mirror is showing people something they've been running from their entire lives. It's showing them that they chose comfort over growth, that they chose approval over authenticity, that they chose the safety of the crowd over the risk of becoming who they actually are. Every time people look at you now, they see the path they didn't take. They see the courage they didn't have. They see the price they weren't willing to pay. And that creates a rage that can't be directed inward, so it gets directed at you. You get called arrogant when you're just confident. You get called cold when you're just boundaried. You get called changed when you just stopped pretending. But underneath all those words, underneath all that analysis, lives pure, unadulterated envy. Because you did something that most people can't even conceptualize. You broke free from the need for external validation, and in doing so, you became more powerful than any version of yourself that needed anyone else. That's the reversal that's making people lose sleep. You don't need anyone anymore, and everyone knows it. If you recognized yourself in this message, hype this video to guide other chosen ones to this truth. Now let's talk about what makes this reversal so psychologically devastating for everyone watching. It's not just that you changed the game, you revealed that their game was always optional. Think about the years people spent believing they held cards over you, the subtle ways they made you feel like you needed to earn your seat at tables you built with your own hands, the quiet moments where they positioned themselves as gatekeepers to opportunities you created from nothing. They convinced you that their network was your access, that their approval was your currency, that their validation was your passport to success, and you believed it for a while because the illusion was convincing. And then you discovered something that shattered their entire economy. You found out you were never working for access. You were the access point everyone else was trying to reach. You were never seeking validation from authorities. You were the authority, and your presence validated others simply by existing. You were never trying to break into exclusive circles. You were the circle everyone wanted to penetrate. This realization didn't just change your perspective. It collapsed their entire power structure like a controlled demolition. They're experiencing what happens when the perceived hierarchy gets completely inverted. When the person they thought was beneath them reveals they were never even in the same competition to begin with. It's like they've been playing a game where they thought they were winning, only to discover you were the referee the whole time. You were never competing for the prize they dangled. You were the one deciding who deserved to play, and that realization is breaking their minds in ways they can't articulate. They're going through what psychologists call an identity crisis by proxy. Their entire sense of self was built on a relational dynamic where you were positioned lower than them, not because you were actually lower, but because you allowed them to believe it. You played the part they assigned, you performed the role they wrote for you, and they built their entire self-concept on that performance being reality. Their confidence wasn't real confidence. It was the comfort they felt standing on your submission. Their success wasn't real success. It was the illusion created by your diminishment. Their influence wasn't real influence. It was speaking to an audience of one who chose to listen. Now let me put you on to something real. Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind-programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your destiny engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Now that the performance has ended, they're not just losing you, they're losing the version of themselves that existed in relation to you. The confident one, the successful one, the influential one. All of those identities were propped up by your participation in their narrative. And without your participation, those identities are collapsing like buildings with no foundation. They're realizing some uncomfortable truths. They weren't actually confident. They were just comfortable with your submission. They weren't actually successful. They were just benefiting from your diminishment. They weren't actually influential. They were just speaking to someone who chose to listen out of politeness or fear. This is why their reaction is so extreme. This is why they can't just let it go and move on with their lives. Because letting go of you means letting go of the version of themselves they spent years constructing. And most people would rather cling to a false version of themselves than face the brutal work of becoming real. So they fight, they resist, they create narratives where you're the villain for simply removing yourself from their delusion. They need you to be wrong so they can be right. They need you to fail so they can succeed. They need you to come back so their world makes sense again. You're not fighting their narrative. You're not defending yourself against their stories. You're not trying to correct the record or set things straight or prove them wrong. You're doing something far more psychologically sophisticated than any of that surface-level engagement. You're letting their narrative exist in a reality you no longer occupy. They can tell whatever story they want over there in that dimension. You're over here in a completely different frequency, where their stories don't even register as noise worth acknowledging. It's not that you're above it. You've transcended the dimension where it exists. This is what they fundamentally can't comprehend. They think you're ignoring them. You're not. Ignoring implies effort and awareness. Ignoring means you're aware of something and actively choosing not to engage with it. What you're actually doing is existing in a state where their entire reality has become irrelevant to yours. It's not on your radar anymore. It's not in your field of awareness. It's not even a blip in your consciousness worth noting. You're not rising above it through willpower or discipline. You've genuinely transcended the dimension where their drama exists. And this transcendence, this complete exit from their reality, is creating a psychological break they can't repair. Because humans are wired to affect their environment, we're designed to create ripples in the pond, to have impact on the world around us, to generate reactions from the people we interact with. And when they direct all this energy at you and get absolutely nothing back, not anger, not hurt, not even acknowledgement of their existence, it breaks something fundamental in their understanding of how social dynamics work. They're used to action and reaction, push and pushback, attack and defense, cause and effect. But you've removed yourself from that entire equation completely. You're not playing defense because you're not in the game anymore. You're not blocking their attacks because you're not in their range of fire. You're not countering their moves because you're not even on their board. And this absence of reaction is more psychologically devastating than any response you could possibly give them, because at least a response would confirm that they still matter, that they still have the power to affect you, that they still occupy real estate in your consciousness. But your silence, your complete indifference, your genuine lack of awareness of their existence, that's the ultimate power move. They're stuck in a loop of trying to make sense of you. They wake up thinking about it. They analyze it throughout their day. They discuss it with others who are just as confused as they are. They lose sleep over it at night. and the more they try to understand, the further they get from the truth, because the truth is devastatingly simple, but their ego can't accept its simplicity. The truth is, you were always this powerful, you were always this clear, you were always this self-sufficient, you just stopped hiding it to make them comfortable. But their ego needs a different story. Their ego needs you to have changed dramatically, needs you to have gotten help from someone, needs you to have become someone completely new, because if you were always this powerful and they just couldn't see it, what does that say about their perception? What does that say about their judgment? What does that say about their awareness and intelligence? It says they were blind, and nobody wants to admit they were blind to something so obvious, so they create elaborate theories about your transformation, about what happened to you during those months of silence, about who influenced you to become this person, about what triggered this massive change in your personality, and every theory they create takes them further from reality and deeper into their own delusion. Meanwhile, you're just existing, not trying to prove anything to anyone, not trying to explain anything to anyone, just being exactly who you always were without the filter you used to protect their feelings. This is the reversal they're truly choking on. Not that you became powerful out of nowhere, but that you were always powerful and they completely missed it. Not that you changed into someone new, but that you stopped changing yourself for them. Not that you evolved into something greater, but that you stopped evolving to match their limitations. The reversal isn't in you at all. The reversal is in their perception finally catching up to reality, and that gap between where they thought you were and where you actually are is creating cognitive damage they might never fully recover from. They'll carry this confusion for years, always wondering how they got it so wrong. It's not just affecting the people directly in your orbit. It's spreading outward like a frequency wave through water. Other people are watching this unfold. People you don't even know are observing what happens when someone steps fully into their power without apology. And they're learning from your example. They're taking mental notes. They're getting permission from your demonstration to do the same in their own lives. They're seeing that it's actually possible to break free from the need for external validation, that it's actually possible to transcend the game board everyone else is playing on. This is what makes your reversal historically significant beyond just your personal life. It's not just personal anymore, it's archetypal. You're demonstrating a pattern that others can follow in their own way. You're proving that the power structures people believe are fixed and permanent are actually fluid and changeable, that the hierarchies that seem set in stone are actually maintained only by collective belief and agreement, that the gatekeepers who appear necessary are actually completely optional, and when people see this demonstrated in real life, when they watch someone actually do it and not just talk about it in theory, something shifts in the collective consciousness of everyone watching. You're not just changing your own reality, you're expanding what others believe is possible in their reality. Every person who watches you operate from this new frequency gets an upgrade in their own understanding of what power actually looks like. Not the loud power that screams for attention, not the aggressive power that forces compliance through fear, not the dominating power that crushes opposition, but the quiet, certain, unshakable power that comes from being completely aligned with your truth. The power that doesn't need to announce itself because it's self-evident. The power that doesn't need to defend itself because it's undeniable. The power that doesn't need to prove itself because it simply is. The people who opposed you, who tried to keep you small, who benefited from your diminishment, they're inadvertently helping spread this frequency wider than you ever could alone, because they can't stop talking about you, they can't stop analyzing you, they can't stop trying to figure you out. And every conversation they have about you is another person being exposed to the frequency of what's possible. Every group chat where they discuss your transformation is another seed being planted in someone else's consciousness. Every late-night analysis session where they try to decode your power is another person learning that this kind of power even exists. They think they're gossiping about an anomaly. They think they're processing a confusing situation. They think they're making sense of someone who doesn't make sense to them. But what they're actually doing is broadcasting your frequency to everyone in their entire network. They're marketing your power to people you've never met and never will meet. They're testifying to your transformation in rooms you'll never enter. They've become unwitting evangelists for the very thing they're desperately trying to diminish, and they don't even see it happening. They're so focused on trying to understand what happened that they don't realize they're actively participating in spreading it to others. This is the ultimate reversal within the reversal. Not only did you flip the script on them completely, you turned them into amplifiers for your message. Not only did you escape their control entirely, you made them instruments of your expansion. Not only did you transcend their reality, you used their resistance as rocket fuel for your ascension to higher levels, and they don't even see it. They're blind to their own role in your rise. They think they're containing the damage when they're actually spreading the virus of your freedom to everyone they know. It's beautiful to watch when you understand what's really happening. You didn't just stop caring what people thought about you. That's too simple, and it's not even accurate. What you did was develop a completely different relationship with other people's thoughts about you. You moved from desperately seeking their approval to being genuinely curious about their perspective without being attached to it. You shifted from needing their validation to survive to being interested in their opinion, the way you might be interested in weather patterns in a city you're not visiting. Mildly interesting at best, but completely irrelevant to your actual life. This shift is profound because it's not rejection. Rejection still implies relationship and connection. Rejection still implies they matter enough to push against. What you did was relocate them from the center of your awareness to the periphery, from essential to your existence to incidental to your experience, from impactful to your decisions to merely informational. They went from being people whose opinions actively shaped your decisions to being people whose opinions exist somewhere in the general landscape of human thought. And this relocation didn't happen through force or effort or willpower. It happened through natural growth, the way a tree doesn't reject the ground when it grows upward toward the sun. The tree just grows, and naturally, organically, inevitably, the ground becomes less relevant to the parts of the tree reaching for sky. You didn't reject these people consciously. You grew beyond the altitude where their opinions could reach. And from where you are now, looking down at the landscape below, they're not enemies or obstacles or even relevant challenges anymore. They're just part of the landscape you've risen above through natural growth. And this is why they can't pull you back down to their level, because you're not holding yourself up through sheer effort and willpower. You're not maintaining this altitude through constant vigilance and discipline. You grew into this height naturally. It's who you are now at your core. And just like a tree can't ungrow once it's reached a certain height, you can't go back to the ground level where their manipulation tactics actually work. You've permanently expanded beyond their range of influence. The weapons they used to use against you simply don't reach this altitude anymore. They've been performing power their whole lives, using tactics they learned from books, playing games they observed others playing, managing perceptions to maintain an image, maintaining a facade that requires constant energy to uphold. It's exhausting work. It requires constant energy expenditure, constant vigilance to maintain the illusion, constant performance to keep the mask from slipping. And when they look at you now, they're trying to figure out what tactic you're using, what game you're playing, what image you're carefully maintaining. They can't conceive that you're not doing any of that anymore, that you're simply being who you actually are, without pretense, that this isn't a performance or a strategy or a calculated move in some grand chess game. It's just you existing without the filter you used to run everything through. And authentic power is so foreign to them, so completely outside their experience, that they literally cannot recognize it when they see it. It doesn't fit any category in their understanding of how power works. So they keep analyzing, keep theorizing, keep trying to decode something that isn't encoded at all. You're not speaking in code, you're speaking in pure clarity. But clarity looks like code to people who've spent their whole lives swimming in confusion. You're not playing a game, you're living in truth. But truth looks like strategy to people who've spent their whole lives living in deception. You're not performing power, you're embodying it naturally. But embodiment looks like performance to people who've only ever pretended to be powerful. This is the gap they cannot bridge. This is the translation they cannot make. This is the understanding they cannot reach, no matter how hard they try. Because reaching it would require them to admit that everything they've built is performance, that their whole life is a strategy, that their power is pretend. And that admission would collapse their entire identity structure, so they stay confused, they stay analyzing, they stay lost in trying to figure out a magic trick that isn't magic at all. It's just reality, and reality is the one thing they've been running from all along. Now we enter the part people really can't handle, the part that makes hands shake when your name comes up. You're not just powerful now, you're unreachable. There's a difference. Powerful people can still be manipulated through ego, through need for status, through desire for more. But unreachable people, people who've transcended the entire reward system that society operates on, those are the ones who change reality. You can't threaten someone who's already walked through hell. You can't bribe someone who's found peace in nothing. You can't manipulate someone who studied every tactic in the book and decided none of it applies anymore. This is where you are now, not above anyone, not below anyone, just operating in a completely different dimension. Checkers is still being played, with arguments about moves and counter-moves, winning and losing. You stepped off the board entirely. You're not trying to win that game anymore. You built a new game with new rules, and the only person who knows how to play is you. That's what's creating this collective panic you're witnessing. Competition can't happen with someone who's not competing. Defeat can't happen to someone who's not fighting. Diminishment can't happen to someone who's already found solid ground and built a fortress on it. Attempts will be made to bring you back down, not because hatred exists, but because your elevation makes stagnation in others impossible to ignore. Every tool in the manipulation handbook will get used. First comes nostalgia. Remember when you used to be fun? Remember when you used to be one of us? The goal is to make you associate your old self with happiness, your new self with isolation. Don't fall for it. Your old self wasn't happy, it was compliant. Second comes concerned trolling. Just worried about you. You've changed. This isn't healthy. The goal is to make you question your own evolution, to second-guess your growth. Ignore it. Concern isn't for your well-being, it's for someone else's comfort. Third comes the ultimate weapon, social isolation. Exclusion happens. Conversations about you happen without you in the room. Narratives get created. This is where most people break, where crawling back happens, desperate for belonging. But you've already died in isolation and resurrected stronger. Exclusion has no power here. In fact, it's a gift. Every person who can't handle your evolution is removing themselves from your path, making room for the ones who can match your frequency. You know what intelligence agencies actually study? Not loud revolutions, not visible wars, not obvious power grabs. Silent operators get studied. People who can enter a system, understand it completely, and reconfigure it from within without anyone realizing until it's too late. That's what you just did. You were in the system, playing the game, following the rules, and the whole time you were learning, adapting, understanding the machinery of power structures. And then when you had complete understanding, you didn't fight it. You simply stopped feeding it. You removed your energy, your attention, your need for approval, and without that fuel, the entire system of influence over you collapsed. This is genius-level psychological warfare. No confrontation, no drama, no bridge burning, Just a quiet withdrawal of supply that left everyone scrambling to understand why tactics stopped working. Fighting back keeps people engaged in systems. Explaining yourself means you still care what people think, but you did neither. You just changed frequencies and left everyone screaming into the void. That's not just smart. That's operating at a level most people never reach. You didn't beat anyone in their game. You made their game irrelevant by creating a new one nobody else even knows how to play. Reputation isn't what people say about you. Reputation is what people feel when your name comes up. And right now, when your name enters a conversation, the room changes, the energy shifts, people lean in, voices lower because talking about you isn't casual anymore. It's serious, it's loaded, it's walking through a minefield of jealousy, confusion, and reluctant respect. You've become the standard that makes everyone else feel insufficient. You've become the reminder that growth is possible, which means staying stagnant is a choice. You've become the evidence that authenticity is more powerful than performance, which means everyone still performing is revealed as fraudulent. The desire exists for you to go back to being small, so everyone else can go back to feeling big, but you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unlearn what you've learned. You can't unbecome what you've become. The genie is out of the bottle, and there's no stuffing it back in. You've discovered that the most potent weapon in human interaction isn't aggression, it's not cleverness, it's not even intelligence. It's calm certainty. When you speak now, you don't argue, you state. When you move, you don't rush, you flow. When you decide, you don't waver, you commit. This unshakable quality, this bedrock confidence that isn't loud or defensive, it terrifies people who are still trying to convince themselves of their own worth. People are used to triggers, to reactions, to endless back and forth trying to prove something. But you just exist in your truth, with zero need for it to be validated by external sources. This creates a bizarre dynamic where arguments about you happen without you even in the conversation. Cases get built, evidence gets gathered, narratives get created, and you're just living, unbothered, unfazed, unmoved, and every single moment you remain calm while spiraling happens around you. Every moment you stay centered while scattering happens around you. Every moment you maintain peace while chaos gets manufactured around you. The power differential grows, because energy is being burned trying to affect you, and you're conserving energy by not being affected. You want to know what genius mode actually looks like? It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most free, because intelligence without freedom is just sophisticated slavery. You can have a brilliant mind and still be controlled by need for approval, fear of rejection, attachment to outcomes. But freedom, real freedom, the kind you've achieved, that's when intelligence becomes unstoppable. You can think clearly because you're not thinking about what others think. You can move decisively because you're not waiting for permission. You can create boldly because you're not afraid of judgment. Every loss was actually a shedding. Every ending was actually a beginning. Every death was actually a rebirth. And now you're operating from this place of such profound internal freedom that external circumstances can't shake you. Praise or criticism can come. Inclusion or exclusion can happen. Understanding or misunderstanding can occur. And none of it changes your trajectory because your power source is internal now. And it can't be accessed, can't be manipulated, can't be shut down. The greatest psychological reversal isn't about winning, it's about becoming someone who doesn't need to win, because completion already exists. You're not trying to prove anyone wrong anymore. You're not trying to make anyone see your value. You're not trying to get revenge by succeeding. All of that still makes others central to your story. The real reversal happened when others became extras in your narrative instead of the main characters, when opinions became background noise instead of gospel truth, when presence became optional instead of essential. This is what's creating insanity. People used to live rent-free in your head, and now visitor passes can't even be obtained. Moods used to be affected with a look, confidence with a word, direction with doubt. Now people are just people, not enemies, not friends, just people who exist in a reality you no longer share. And the powerful part is you didn't have to hate anyone to get here. You didn't have to curse anyone or cut anyone off dramatically. You just outgrew the version of yourself that needed others, and in doing so you outgrew those people. It's not personal, it's just evolution, and evolution doesn't ask permission from the past. You're not heartless, you're just done wasting heart on people who don't value it. You're not cold, you're just conserving warmth for those who appreciate it. You're not cruel, you're just no longer kind to people who weaponize kindness. You've learned the difference between being loving and being available for mistreatment. You've learned the difference between being forgiving and being a doormat. You've learned the difference between being understanding and being a dumping ground for people who refuse to do their own emotional work. These distinctions, these boundaries, transformed you from someone who was nice to someone who is respected. Nice gets taken advantage of, respected gets space. And now you move through the world with this aura that communicates without words. Games aren't accepted here. Drama isn't interesting here. Manipulation isn't available here. Approach correctly, or don't approach at all. This energy, this frequency, it filters your reality automatically. The wrong people feel uncomfortable and leave. The right people feel recognized and stay. And you don't have to do anything except maintain your standards and trust the process. This is your moment, your reversal, your emergence. Welcome to the other side of transformation. Welcome to your power. Welcome home. And remember this as you move forward into this new reality you've created. That shift everyone felt, that was just the opening move. That confusion being experienced, that's just the first wave. Because you're not done evolving, you're not done growing, you're not done becoming. This reversal you just executed is the foundation for everything that comes next. The universe itself is reorganizing to accommodate your emergence. Reality is bending around your new frequency. And everyone in your orbit is feeling the shift, whether it can be named or not. The chosen one has stepped into power, and there's no going back. Not because you can't, but because you won't. You've tasted freedom, and you can never return to voluntary imprisonment. You've experienced your true power, and you can never pretend to be small again. You've seen who you really are, and you can never unsee it. So let conversations happen, let theories form, let sleepless nights come for those trying to figure you out. While that's happening, you just keep moving forward, keep growing, keep evolving into versions of yourself nobody has even imagined yet. Because this reversal you just pulled off, it's not the end of your story. It's the beginning of what happens when someone finally stops apologizing for being exactly who they are. The beginning of what's possible when you stop seeking permission and start taking ownership. The beginning of a life lived at full volume with no apologies, no explanations, and absolutely zero tolerance for anyone trying to dim your light. You just pulled off the greatest psychological reversal in history. Everyone is shook, and the beautiful part, you're just getting started.